we're gonna do the sleeve placket. So I cut the bottom of the sleeve. Remember, I have the slit in here, I have the notches here, right? Make sure that you have all of those. We don't have to have the whole sleeve, we're just gonna do the placket demonstration. So we're gonna start with the sleeve binding. So the sleeve binding, we cut it an inch, was it a quarter? Inch and a, yeah. Because we're gonna stitch it only at a quarter of an inch, okay? So see this shortest part? That's where the sleeve placket goes. I mean the binding goes. The placket is gonna go on the widest part. So what I'm gonna do is, and by the way, your sleeve should look like this. Okay, remember I had that line with the little scissors? You guys are gonna cut through that line. Okay, don't finish your sleeve without cutting that, because where are you gonna put the placket? So we placed it right here. Look, it measures exact as my cut, right? And magic. Who would have known? Okay, that's why I told you to add seam allowance only to the bottom of it. Okay, so I'm going to stitch here at a quarter of an inch until the very edge at the end. When you stitch, make sure that you are stitching from the very edge of whatever you're doing in reverse, beginning and end. So a quarter of an inch, I'm gonna be on top of the line that says a quarter. I'm gonna do a couple of stitches. I'm gonna reverse a couple of stitches. And then I'm gonna stitch until the end. And I'm going to reverse. Now I'm doing this in muslin because muslin is very crisp and I don't have to get up, but you guys are gonna be having to get up every time you do one of these operations to press, okay? So you're gonna get your 10,000 steps. And I know you guys are really excited about that. I can see it in your faces. Okay, so we're gonna go and we're gonna press this flat. I'm just finger pressing it because it's easy with muslin, but your fabric most likely would not happen. Okay, and this is the reason why I want a cotton fabric, because some other fabrics that I have seen are a little slimy, and it's going to be a little more difficult to actually do this. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over. Okay, oh, it's pink. And I'm going to fold so the raw edges touch each other. And I'm going to press it. So all of this will be done at once when you are on the iron. Okay? And then I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to place it right on top of the stitching line. I don't want to go over a lot. I just want it to be barely on top of that stitching line. And you're gonna pin, but I'm not gonna stitch on this side because I want it to be on the pretty side, right? So I'm gonna go to the pretty side and I'm gonna stitch right next to that seam. Since I folded it over right on top of the stitching line, it will grab this seam allowance, right? So this will be the right side. And obviously I can reverse at the beginning. Okay, and I don't know about you guys, but I find myself that I tend to use landmarks on my foot when I want to use an even stitching line. Let's say, for example, I want a stitching line to be right next to it, so I use I feel that this, and by the way, do not use the narrow foot. I don't know who told anybody to use a narrow foot. A narrow foot, you know what the name of that foot is? zipper foot. So what do you think you use the zipper foot for? Grapefruits. No, for zippers, right? So I'm not doing a zipper. So why am I using a zipper foot? The reason why, and some of you have explained this, these little teeth that are at the bottom are called the feed dog. That's where it pulls your fabric. If you use that narrow foot, it barely touches a little bit on the center. And that's why your stitching lines are like a couple of drinks, okay? But if you use a big foot, which is the regular foot, look at how it covers the 3 rows of teeth. So you have grasp on the fabric, especially some people have got these slimy fabrics, right? So you do need to have as much grasp as you can. Are we all okay? All right, so I'm gonna give a recommendation to you guys. When you go buy fabrics, don't go to the store and say, I want cotton fabric. Because my t-shirt, my sweater, your sweatshirt, and your jeans are all cotton. That's just the fiber content. Even her t-shirt is cotton. And look, it has that ribbing on it, okay? So cotton, your sweater probably is acrylic. We'll look at the fiber content in a minute. But fiber, it's just the fiber content. It's not the type of fabric. There is a million different fabrics that are done in all of those fiber contents. Okay? So now we're gonna do a couple of stitches. I'm gonna reverse. And this is gonna be the most beautiful stitch you ever have seen. We're gonna put it at the Louvre, next to the Mona Lisa. We're gonna do an extension of the Mona Lisa portrait so she can have a sleeve and wear these cuffs. Beautiful? Okay. So if you see, since I folded it over that seam, I'm catching that at the bottom. Good? You're so far away, you're like in a satellite. Okay? Now we're gonna prepare the placket. Remember this placket? Remember when we made it, we made a notch? So if we had the same seam allowance, we would have left a notch right there because this is the length of that opening, okay? But if I would have added 1/2 inch seam allowance, I would have had to have cut it off anyway. So may as well have it already cut like this so the seamstress, when it's making this shirt, doesn't have to spend time cutting extra because you know what that means? It means more time, more expensive. Okay, so I'm gonna fold this right sides together and I'm gonna sew the house. Okay, I'm gonna start right there where the 1/4 inch is, corner, corner, end. And I'm gonna turn it inside out. Okay? And since I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, how much seam allowance do you think I'm gonna use when I sew? 1/4 inch, because that's what I have on my pattern, right? So I'm gonna place it right here at 1/4. I'm gonna take this pin off, it's on my way. And I'm going to a couple of stitches, reverse a couple of stitches, go right here up to the corner, like my corner there. I'm going to turn up to my corner. Please guys, don't stitch out on every side of this because when we are going to trim that little corner to turn it inside out, that is going to come off and it's going to give you a hole when you turn it on. The best thing to do is pivot and you can reverse at the end. Okay, so I got my little house. I don't know, every time I do this, it reminds me of San Francisco that has the twin little houses. I don't know, it's just, I have visuals in my head. So I'm gonna cut where the corner is, because if I don't cut it, the corner is gonna be bulky, okay? So when I cut it, I don't just cut it like this, because when it folds in, it overlaps in the corner, and that's going to be bulky. I'm actually gonna cut it 30 degrees angle, like that. Make sure you do not cut the thread. I'm gonna do it same thing here, and here I have another corner. Now, right here where I started, I'm going to snip up to my stitching point. Okay? You're too far, come. I'm gonna stitch here up to that stitching point, that 1/2 inch. Everybody okay? Okay? So now I'm gonna turn it inside out. I want it to be pointy because I have a little house with a nice roof. And I have 3 corners in here, correct? See that? Because I snipped here, I have my seam allowance free. Make sure that you don't over snip because you're gonna end up having a hole. Everybody okay?
Yes.
Anybody needs a picture of this? Can do a selfie? Okay. Everybody good?
Yes.
Okay. You can't complain. You get an explanation of a sleeve with comic relief. May I have my sleeve back? Thank you. Okay. Say it again.
Maybe say
Please.
please.
Okay. So I'm going to place the placket here, but I'm going to pin single layer. Okay? I'm not going to stitch both layers. I'm going to stitch only the single layer at that 1/2 inch. Okay? If these jokes are not waking you up, I have no idea. Next time I'll get a bucket of water. Okay, so I'm stitching exactly there. You guys can see? Okay? So I'm gonna stitch at 1/2 inch. So a few stitches, always reverse. I don't want it to come off. And then I'm going to stitch at 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to reverse. Okay? This is not hard. The top stitching is going to be the hard part. And I'm going to give you 2 options. Actually, I'm going to get a piece of paper so you guys can see the direction of the stitchings, how to do them. Okay? I'm going to do the long way, but you guys can decide either one. Okay? So now we're going to fold this that we stitched, and you're going to press it. Pretty? I'm going to do on the opposite side. See that it's not going in? So on the sleeve, I'm going to snip up to where I stitched. And that's going to release the seam allowance to go inside of the sleeve placket. Okay? That is the trick. You need to snip it there. Then I'm going to press 1/2 inch on the edge, and I'm going to place it exactly on top of the top stitching. That way when I top stitch on the other side, okay, it will grab underneath. So I'm gonna put a couple of pins here. Okay, so this is a really crucial moment. See that I have done, see the top stitching is on the, not on the wrong side. I want to make sure that the little house is on the outside, because you can easily flip it and then you end up having the sleeve for the other side. I have a lot of students that they end up having two sleeves or the two sleeve plackets for the same side, and they did it correctly, except that it got flipped to the other side, and then when he top stitched, the top stitched them both for the same side. Okay? So now we're going to top stitch right here up to exactly where I cut off, but by itself. After we get here, now we place this back again, and now we're going to stitch the little house into the sleeve. So here is the options that I'm going to give you. We can stitch here, go around the little house, and then end across here. And that will be fine. Or the fancy way, you come here, you continue to the corner, do the little house. When you come to the roof right here, you go across, come back, go across, come back, and then finish down. So you have an X there, which you guys have seen sleeves that way. Okay? Then the last thing you need to do is just top stitch continue on the folded side. I'm going to do it that way, okay? And I'm going to get a piece of paper and I'm going to draw both of them, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 so you know the steps. So some of you guys can challenge yourself to do the X. Some of you guys don't have to. It's up to you. Okay? So I'm going to flip this pin, now that I have it in that place, to the front. So that way I don't stitch on top of it. Okay? And by the way, you have a right and a left sleeve. So exactly that we're doing right now, you're gonna have to do it facing the other way. Okay? So if you guys want to see how it would be on the other side, watch your video in the mirror and it will be flipped. I just made it up. Anyway, don't look at yourself. You know what you look like. Okay, so here I'm going to stitch on the edge. And I'm going to stitch up to where it was cut, which is right here where my stitching is. I'm going to put my pin here so I know exactly where it is. Okay? There we go. So I'm going to take the pin out, and now I'm going to bring the sleeve back again flat. And now I'm going to stitch with the placket. Good? I can even, where are my pins? I lost them all. Thank you. Oh, right here. No, I had a lot of pins here. I'm going to actually put a pin right here on the opposite side so it doesn't move. So I know that that's where is going to be my guideline. See? Okay? So now I'm going to stitch to make sure that the fabric in the bottom is flat. I'm going to stitch to the end. Go slow at the end so you can have a nice stitching in the corner. Okay? And that's why I use the knee, right? Don't use this, guys. It's much easier to use the knee. I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to do to the end. If you can't control and you feel that you're going extra, like for example, I feel like that stitch will be a little too long. If I lift it with my knee, I can move it down to where I want it and get my needle in. So we're doing the X? Okay. So now I'm going to come down to this corner. Now I'm going to come down to this side. Now I'm going to go up. Oh no, I'm going to go across, not diagonal. Should have been a teacher. Anyway, I'm going to go up to the end. Oh, I was in the right place. I'm going to come back down, and then I need to continue stitching all the way to the bottom, but only here. So look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave the needle in, and I'm going to flip this back. Hopefully will not interfere in there. I'm just inventing this. I hope that it works. And then I continue all the way to the bottom. Now, see how he pinched weird? So now that's not working. I have to end there. So I should have reversed in there so it doesn't come off. See that I have one stitch too many, right? And if I want to, now I can continue from here down. Ready? Okay. So, next thing we need to do is we need to make our pleats. See, I have the notches. So this pleat goes to here. Okay. This piggy went to the market. Okay. And then this pleat goes to here. And what I'm gonna do is a holding stitch. Anybody knows what a holding stitch does? Holds it. Oh my God, you guys are so clever. Okay, so since I have ½ inch seam allowance, my holding stitch will be a little less than that, just to make sure that I'm holding it in place. Make sure that your pleats are going up this way. It's just to hold them in place so I don't have to have all of these pins when I stitch later. Yes? Okay. So after we do both of the sleeves, then we're going to attach the armhole. Then we're going to sew from the cuff all the way down to the hem. Then you're going to put the cuffs. The cuffs is the last thing because your cuff opens from here to here. So the sleeve has to be sewn in order to be able to put the cuff. Yes? Beautiful? We put it at the Louvre next to the Mona Lisa. Maybe we should do to the Pompidou, that is more modern art. Okay, I'm gonna get a piece of paper and I'm gonna draw the direction of the stitches, because if you don't follow the lines, you're gonna end up not being able to continue the X. Okay? All right, any questions? No? Okay. That's it.